I'm doing it live. Good morning. Thank you for joining us for Community Resources and Gardening. This is Quanti, and today I am so honored. Thank you, David, for me. You are a profound trust. I wanted to thank you today, and I wanted to talk to you more about Wombwork production. So, David, introduce yourself.
All right. Well, greetings, everybody. I'm Dr. David Fakunle. Among my many responsibilities, I am the executive director of Wombwork Productions, which is a social change performing arts company based in Baltimore.
Well, tell us about you, David. Tell us more about you. What do you do? What things other than drawing?
Man, what don't I do? That's my problem. Um, so my main job is I'm a assistant professor at Morgan State University in the School of Community Health and Policy. I also teach as associate faculty at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. I'm adjunct assistant professor at the University of Florida Center for Arts and Medicine. As I mentioned before, executive director of Wombwork Productions. Also, co-founder and CEO of Discover Me, Recover Me, which is an organization that utilizes storytelling as a healing practice. What else? Part of the Maryland State Arts Council as a counselor. Part of the Baltimore City Trauma Informed Care Task Force. Chair of the Maryland Lynching Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So I stay busy, Kwanzaa, you know that. But I mean, everything is revolved around.
And plus, you are a drummer, drumming.
Oh yeah, that too.
So,
Right?
yes, that's how I met you through mom, Dr. Mama.
No doubt, no doubt.
Tell me some more. Definitely. So tell me more about Wombworks Productions and what is the purpose? What was the purpose of Wombworks, and what are you doing now? What are you doing now?
Yeah. So Wombwork was founded 25 years ago by three Black and Indigenous women, three mothers, three artists who were looking for a safe space for their children. Many of the circumstances of Baltimore City, unfortunately, have not changed in the past 25 years. In many cases, it's still dangerous for Black and brown children in this city. Not everywhere, but enough. So they decided to create a space for their children, and it became the friends of their children, classmates of their children, and ultimately children in the surrounding neighborhoods of West Baltimore. And they used performing arts as the enticement for children to come in. And it wasn't just learning about being on stage and putting on theatrical performances, but it was the opportunity to tell the stories of the circumstances and the communities that the children represented, myself included. So I joined Wombwork back in 2001 at the age of 14 years old. And my story was my story. I don't apologize for my context. And yet there was an opportunity for me to share my truth as a part of this larger narrative about, again, the challenges that Black and brown children faced in Baltimore and still face in Baltimore when it came to very important and sometimes difficult issues to talk about. And we mean HIV AIDS, we mean interpartner violence, we talk about gang violence, we talked about sexual assault, child sexual assault. Again, prevalent, topical, relevant public health issues. And what made it digestible for the audiences that Wombwork performed for and performed with was that the stories reflected, again, the truth in many cases of the performers themselves. So the healing part was very inherent because as you tell your story, you are healed from whatever you're holding on to. So when we say get things off your chest, is literally a psychophysiological response when you are able to get things off your chest. When you're able to tell stories that you perhaps have not told before, when you're able to share your truth in a way that you weren't allowed in many cases to share your truth before, you feel better. It wasn't until I was in grad school at Hopkins that I learned that was public health. It was always public health. Wombwork engaged in health
Mm-hmm.
communication when talking about prevalent public health issues. It engaged in healing practices with, again, giving space to black and brown children, black and brown adults, white children. It became everybody who needed a space to tell their story, to talk about those challenges that, again, were not the easiest to share and explain, and do so in a way that not only provided healing for the performers and provided healing for the audiences, but equipped the audiences with an action on how to address that public health issue. And in many cases, it starts with the individual. So when we think about these large issues like racism,
Mm-hmm.
toxic capitalism, homophobia, transphobia, those are huge societal issues. No one person will be able to solve any of them, but there is what you can do within your own capacity. And the performances that Woundwork puts on, the arts instruction that we do within schools across Baltimore and the state of Maryland, ultimately show that we
Mm-hmm.
are enough as human beings, and that we have our own capacity to address these long-standing societal issues. So that's the long and short of Woundwork. We continue to do that and continue to grow. We'll be doing our new generation and next generation art ensemble sessions later this morning at the Community Resource Center over in Southwest Baltimore. So I'm proud to help lead this organization in a stronger direction to get it the recognition and the support is always deserved, and it is manifesting. So that is what keeps me going in that capacity.
Wow, my goodness. So, can if there were any adults or children who are interested in getting involved in works, what would be the process?
So the process will just be reaching out to us. So you can go to wombwork.com and you can sign up. If parents, if your children are interested in coming to our Saturday sessions, that's really the uh, current opportunity for children to be involved in our work. We go across different schools, again, around the Baltimore metropolitan area. Usually those are connections with the schools themselves. We also have an agency, Arts for Learning Maryland, that finds opportunities for us to engage in arts instruction. But looking to work with us directly, woundwork.com. You can find us on Instagram at woundworker. You can look up Woundwork Productions on Facebook. So there are many points of contact, and I'll give you my email address as well. David, it's very simple, at wombwork.com, WOMBWORK.com. But just reaching out to us and just expressing your interest. We are open. We are always accepting of people who are interested in the performing arts, and not just being on stage, but even the creation of performing arts. So when we do performances, you got to write the scripts, you got to direct, you got to produce. There's the technical aspects. And the one thing that we are continuing to emphasize as an organization is all of these things can get you paid. These are commodifiable skills, and they all have increasing value. I continue to learn just how much Baltimore is becoming a hotspot for the film industry. So Woundwork has a history of its performers getting uh, opportunities on the screen and beyond. So I'm sure people have heard of The Wire. Many Woundwork performers were in The Wire. I was not, because I was in college,
Mm-hmm.
but that's okay. um, and we've had many of our alumni go on to big productions around music, film, television, you name it. So as much as it's about healing, as much as it's about strengthening our black and brown children, strengthening all children, all people, because we recognize that everyone needs healing. It's also about creating good, great,
Mm-hmm.
awesome artists. And the one thing I'll really say is, if you stick with it, if you engage in the work, if you kind of let yourself see all the different possibilities of what Woundwork can offer, it will pay off, literally.
I may be checking you out myself to write, and so I make maybe excuse me, calling Wombwork myself. So, what are you going to be doing? Anything the holidays that people can participate in or patronize in November, December?
Yes, so our next big production will be around the holiday of Kwanzaa. So be on the lookout for the details regarding that performance. That will be one that involves our youth ensemble, which is next generation. It will involve our teen ensemble, which is new generation, and it will involve the old heads, myself included, with New World Art Ensemble. So we are looking to present this multi-generational um, celebration of Kwanzaa, the principles of Kwanzaa, the Nguzo Saba, and all the ways that it guides our daily living, not just between December 26th and January 1st, but all 365 and sometimes 366 days of the year. It's a philosophy, and it is something that
Hmm.
strengthens us individually and collectively. And our Kwanzaa performance will just be yet another way that Wombwork demonstrates the importance of cultural understanding, cultural appreciation, cultural love. These are principles that, yes, are grounded in the continent of Africa, but they have universal application. And Wombwork has been successful and is proud of how we have shown all audiences of all socio-demographics the importance of African and indigenous philosophies. And that will certainly continue for our Kwanzaa celebration. So again, continue to look for us on social media. Look for us at wombwork.com for more details.
Um, so let me get my question. All right. So you have different levels for teenagers and for young people, except
Mhm.
all children, no matter what color are. Wombworks is healing, advancing, and encouraging.
Yes,
The question I
absolutely.
have is, you had the opportunity to get I'm not going to say, well, get this massive funding where you do it on a global stage, would you do it?
Yeah, I
With
mean
Wombworks
we're already
production.
doing it. So Wombwork
Oh,
has
I'm
long.
sorry. Okay, but I'm saying for me,
Yeah, no,
I know
it's
it's known everywhere, but if you had in every on every level,
yeah.
that there's quite a few people that I'm familiar with that are at Wombworks. For me, as as a woman, children were not able to, because when by the time to know you guys, my children were grown. My
Mhm.
daughter did actually play with a couple of her children from her class. They participated, and she was able to support. But some other things that you're doing or have done with Wombworks that has been instrumental to things, some of your adults being active in the community, changing the dynamics of a lot of that once was done that is no longer done in the community.
Absolutely. Well, Wombwork prides itself on showing the value that all people have and all the ways that they can contribute to their communities.
Hmm.
Uh, there are multi-dynamic challenges, which means there's going to be multi-dynamic solutions. Ultimately, with what Woundwork does, it shows the value of arts and culture as a part of that multi-dynamic solution. Um, I think one of the big shifts in Woundwork over the past couple of years has been its intentional embrace of arts, culture, and health. And that is something that is always done, but now we are saying that explicitly, and that comes
Hmm.
from my personal exposure. So at the University of Florida Center for Arts and Medicine, that is an institution that studies, that practices, that looks to understand the impact of artistic cultural expression, creative expression on public health issues. When I started learning about that about 4 years ago now, it it sparked something. It sparked a reflection on my entire life.
Hmm.
And when I thought back to all the things that I've done in arts and culture, whether it was the Sankofa Dance Theater, whether it was the Griot Circle of Maryland, being part of the Growing Griots, whether it's part of Masuya de Bienkabi, whether it's being part of uh, Wombwork Productions, all of those artistic and cultural and creative outlets that I had, including the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum, huge shout out to them. At the core of all of that, I felt good doing it. Drumming, dancing, singing,
Mm-hmm.
acting, historical portrayals. I felt good doing it. And again, it wasn't until I connected with the University of Florida through a storyteller that I realized that arts and health was a thing. It was an official space. It was something where people were intentionally doing it, intentionally understanding it, intentionally applying it. And once I learned that, I'm like, oh, this makes all the sense in the world. So I took that knowledge back to Wombwork and said,
Mm-hmm.
hey, as much as we are an arts and culture organization, we are a public health organization. And being in public health, I
Mm-hmm.
know how big that is. So the last couple of years, particularly with the COVID-19 pandemic, have really emphasized the importance of two things. Humans are social beings and humans are creative beings. We need that. So any entities, any opportunities that allow us to combine our artistic and cultural and creative practices with being around other people, that's health, that's healing. So now Wombwork says that unapologetically. Like that is what we do, that is who we are. And again, I think the support and appreciation for Wombwork has grown because of that acknowledgement. So I encourage all arts and culture organizations to think about the health impact of what they do and say that stuff explicitly.
Wow, that's profound. Profound. Because I mean, your whole thing is very intentional. And then to be the executive director of an organization that's intentional, that is perfect. So if someone were to partner or make a contribution, where would they go? Who would they talk to? What would they need to do?
I would say anybody that wants to collaborate with Wombwork can talk with me. Like that's how it usually goes.
Okay.
Again, reach out, via email, reach out through the website, through social media. We are always open to collaboration. Um, to me, as long as you're in alignment with what we aim to do, you're good. We pride ourselves on collaboration. We pride ourselves on partnership. We do none of this stuff alone. We're not meant to do it alone. So I certainly hope that people are encouraged to connect with us, to think about their creative talent, what they want to what they want to build up in terms of their creative talent. You don't have to have it all figured out to work with us. We are about cultivating skills. We are about cultivating possibilities. So again, yeah, if you're interested, reach out to me. Don't be silent. I am very approachable, believe it or not. So yeah, we welcome the opportunities for people to just share and express their interests. And if they see an opportunity to collaborate with us, do it.
I just say, um, I am so honored to have met you. Also, very proud to have met you because you have a presence that is just very powerful. I mean, you don't even talk, and you can just from. I'll never forget we were doing something with public health, and I had some students that I had working with me at the center, and you had came and you were drumming. Before you drummed, you speaking to all of the higher ups that were in the room, and they felt accountable. I mean, it was like you said what you had to say, and you went on to drum. But when we were talking different sharp theme, and I know that I called to action that I need to do, and I'm held accountable by not only the students but the faculty. And it just made me feel like I am so proud to have met you, to even have had you at the center. You actually were working with children who were all from all over the city that had no idea with you and your mom, and it was just so profound. And for me, it was an honor to even ask you to come because all I just feel you were able to come into a room, make the children feel very safe, and then teach them from and watch them progress. And every week we saw and they saw you. And these kids were coming from side, southeast, southwest, every day on the bus just to see you on the day. And for that, I honor you, pay homage to you. I pay homage to your mother. But it is a whole, nowhere, no matter where you are, even with your son, it's just amazing. And I just want to thank you because you role in the advancement of my own children, and they're grown. So I just want to say for that, and in this space to say that.
Well, thank you. No, I'm always grateful for appreciation. Is one of the existential determinants. We want to be appreciated. So I do my best to never get used to uh, people showing their love for who I am and the things that I've done. I'll admit that I'm typically focused on just doing the work. So I don't take as much time to think about the
Mm-hmm.
impact, but I know it's impactful. And I am the product of people who cared. Yes, my mother, my father as well. Um, Many people in my community,
Mm-hmm.
my cultural community, um, it made the difference. Yeah, people told me I was special when I was young, so I won't be naive. It's like, yeah, okay, there's something special about this kid. I don't think they knew what it was going to manifest. Like, I certainly didn't. And for me to turn out the way that that I have, and to, I think, do my best to maintain perspective. Uh, I don't want to be too far detached from being a child, from being a teenager, to forget what that felt like,
Mm-hmm.
to know the importance of people who cared, people who allowed you to feel, to again think about what your path in life could be at that point. Um, I do this in a bunch of ways. Probably the number one thing I do as a professor is to remind my students that they're human. Um, I do that for my colleagues too. I do that for any space that I'm in. Um, and hey, if I got to use my gravitas to do that, cool. We're human, which means we're finite, which means we die, which means we got to think about what our legacy truly wants to be. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, we won't be thinking about how much money we made. We won't be thinking about how much power we had. We'll be thinking about if anybody remembers us when we're gone. Um, will we live beyond our physical, incarnation? Because the story will last. And the question is, what kind of
Mm-hmm.
story will they be telling about you when you're gone? I am grateful to hear these stories now
Mm-hmm.
while I can appreciate them. I feel confident that the stories that I will leave behind when I'm gone will be ones that I'll be proud of. So in my own way, I'll live forever. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
grateful for that. That gives me comfort when my time comes. Hopefully, no time soon. But again, I think it's just important to keep perspective on this thing we call life. So what brings me happiness is making other people happy. So if that means mentoring them, guiding them, creating opportunities, saying what needs to be said, doing what needs to be done, putting people in their place, I have no problem doing any of those things. And I think having true perspective on life makes that easy. It really, really does. And um, along with doing that myself, again, empowering other people to do it. Any revolution, any type of shift that we want in our world is going to come from the collective, not just from one person. I'll do my best to be again a catalyst, to be encouragement, to be empowerment. But we got to get critical capacity on any shifts that we want to see in the world. So uh, my job is to do my best with that, with my family, with my colleagues, with my students, whoever the case may be.
So you just answered the one question that I said. What do you want your legacy to be? So you pretty much answered that. No, you did. Well, if okay, so story, your legacy. Do you feel that Ball City needs to incorporate more um, programs like yours to tackle this the situation they have right now with the squeegee boys and
Mm,
um, the opiate, heroin addiction, people that are walking around, the homeless. Do you think that Baltimore City government needs to utilize your services because you're dealing with health, you're dealing with
mm,
healing, real truth. They're real truth.
mm.
And if that opportunity was for you, would you take it?
So here's what I'll say: the Baltimore City government knows where to find me. I am not a stranger to
Mm-hmm.
them. So for me, again, I'm busy
Mm-hmm.
doing the work. When they're ready to find me, they will find me. Um, they will find Wombwork. They know that Wombwork exists. They know we have a track record of success when it comes to mental, emotional health, social health. They know that we utilize arts and culture to address public health issues. They know what I do around public health issues. I'm already connected with the city government through the task force. So for me, um,
Mm-hmm.
I see all the things that are happening in Baltimore, and I believe everything in due time. I really, really do. And I have to remind myself of that all the time. I see many of my friends and colleagues going off to incredible things, and I have my moments of envy and jealousy. I'll be honest, and I got to remind myself that comparison is the thief of joy. So when I take a step back and look at who I am and what I've done, I have nothing to complain about. I'm exactly where I need to be. So when the time
Mm-hmm.
comes, I will be in the spaces that I need to occupy, and I occupy a bunch of spaces around the country, around Baltimore, around the world. I'm good. You know what I mean? Like I'm good, and
Mm-hmm.
so I say all that to say that even the highly successful people still deal with envy and jealousy. Sometimes we still have um, our insecurities. You know what I mean? But in terms of what needs to be done in this city, it's simple and complex at the same time. So we can talk about squeegee boys. They need jobs. They need legitimate jobs with
They need.
benefits so that they can take care of themselves and in many cases their families. Let's not be naive about why they're doing this. Like the squeegee thing is a tale as old as time. You can go to any country around the world, you'll see the same thing. It's just a surefire way to make a few bucks, but they're doing it because they have no other options. So if the new initiative is going to give them jobs
Right.
and education and training, cool. And hopefully it will address the issue. But then you also have to think about the circumstances that many squeegee kids and squeegee men are dealing with when it comes to not being able to properly
Mm-hmm.
address social health, emotional health, psychological health. What are the challenges that they are facing in their communities, in their families, in their homes? It has to be holistic. So addressing one aspect of the issue
Mm-hmm.
is not addressing the totality of the circumstances. You got to. So I hope that this initiative does that. And if hey, if Brandon, oh, well, Brandon Scott knows where to find me again. They all do. So I'm not hard to find. Woodwork is not hard to find. So it's not so much a if, it's when. And but from our standpoint, Wombwork is
Mm-hmm.
just going to continue to do what it does and continue to grow its success and grow its impact. It's already got 25 years of impact. In many cases, on a shoestring budget, that's going to change now
Mm-hmm.
because we're starting to get the financial support to really take our work to the next level. We're going to get the attention of people around the city. We already have, but it's not about getting their attention. It's about doing the work
Mm-hmm.
and showing the impact of what arts, culture, and health can do. So yes, the door is always open to anyone from the people to City Hall. We don't care. Again, they're all human anyway, so we know how to put people in proper context, if that makes sense. It doesn't matter how powerful you are when you're in our space, you're human, and it's hard to deal with that for some people, right? Just to be human,
Mm-hmm.
but we do that with love. We do that with understanding. We do that with compassion. So it's about, again, the individual healing that a lot of people need to engage in, but then translating that to collective healing and thinking about the challenges being addressed in a holistic way, economically, psychologically, systemic, all of it. The answer is all of it. So that's what we look to do, is to contribute the way that we know best.
Thank you. Yeah, but the reason why I asked that question is there are some great people that were around. However, the work, like you said, the work that people are afraid of, when you really have to really be true to who you are in your story, it's not that easy when you have to deal with those pains and those that you may not communicate that to others, but in your space, and it's going to be scary. So, and then you're going to be around other people who are also facing different things. So, just when I was looking at the press conference and everything, and I was just like, why isn't Wombwork there? You know, why aren't they there? Because I know for many of some of the people that I did manage with, they went through Wombwork, and I'm looking at them now, and they're a total different human being, a total different, healed, accountable, and they love themselves. And for that, you know, me to see them one way, and then to see them go transition, and to see them perform and have that connection and have a new sense of family that they may not before, that's profound. So to look at these young men be exploited, in my opinion, be exploited and put on a corner, yet you're the guys on the corner to sell drugs. What's the difference? And then you're putting them into different types of people, the situations, and if you're not healed, you're going to be reactive. So that's my opinion. So Brandon, if you're listening, you should have Wombwork at the table, because other people around the table, of course, they have programs, but you can give them all the money you want. But if they're not healed, they don't have that support system, they're going to go back. They're going to go, and then there's going to be the news, the news, the negative news, the squeegee boys. Oh, this person or he did this, but you didn't give them substance, and that's what I see as Wombwork is something more than a substance. So that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion.
No doubt. Well, again,
so what are the next?
What's next? Honestly, again, continue to do the work. So honestly, what's next is I'm going on vacation because I need one. So I'll be gone for a little bit just to relax and to reset, because that's critically important. With all the things that I do, I have to have opportunities to just not do stuff, to be rejuvenated, to do the stuff that's going to be waiting for me when I come back. But overall, for me, I'm just gonna keep doing what I need to do. It's interesting. I'm where I need to be. I have no. I'm not thinking about any long term goals right now. Just because I am where I need to be. Like, I'm engaged in enough stuff that as long as I keep doing that, I'll have plenty to do. It'll take me where I need to go. It'll take me far beyond where I could have imagined. The only way I can keep up with the things that I'm doing is emails and my CV, and just taking a step back and looking at, like, crap, I've done a lot. And it's incredible. It really, really is. So I like that perspective, honestly. He's like, let me just focus on doing the work, and I'll have that moment to reflect and look back and think about all I've been able to accomplish, and again, all the spaces I've been able to be in. It truly is a blessing. It's humbling. But again, my focus is on doing the work, because it needs to be done. And the impact will be there. The accolades will be there. Quite honestly, I don't care about the accolades. Like, I've gotten a lot of them. They don't really do much for me anymore. But I'll take them. Like I said, I appreciate the acknowledgement. I appreciate the appreciation, but I want to see change. Uh, I've been fortunate to be a
Mhm.
catalyst for change. There's a reason I call myself a mercenary for change, because I know I need to be in a bunch of spaces
Mhm.
in order for that change to happen, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. Like I said, I enjoy it. I think that's the most important thing. It takes care of me and my family, and yeah, I get to build that legacy that I want. So what's next? Same stuff I've always been doing.
So you were a young boy. Did you see yourself where you now?
If it was up to me, based on where I was as a child, I was going to be a firefighter, or I was going to be an aerospace engineer. So it's just a reminder of
Okay.
like I didn't know anything. Right? I and that's what I encourage, children, young adults, teenagers to embrace. Don't be scared of the reality that who you are now is not going to be who you are later on. Like it shouldn't be. And if I was close to the journeys that I was supposed to take in life, I would not be where I am now. But in retrospect, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Nothing makes more sense than for me to be in arts, culture, and health. Nothing makes more sense than for me to utilize storytelling the way that I do. It's not just because it I think aligns who I am as a person, but it resonates with everybody. That's the one thing I've learned is really confirmation that I'm where I'm supposed to be. I've yet to have any person in any space, and I'm around powerful people all the time who fundamentally disagrees with the importance of storytelling in any aspect of society. And I'm the guy that's usually the one, bringing
Mhm.
it up, but no one challenges it because they know I'm right. So I'm sure that living my life with this truth helps a lot, but I'm not trying to keep it to myself. Like I want everyone to
Mhm.
embrace this truth. I'm not prognosticating, I'm not preaching, I'm not prophesizing. It's just the truth. We are defined by our stories. We tell stories all the time. It's literally how history is shaped. So having that awareness
Mhm.
changes everything. Storytelling is everywhere. It's like, I'll get biblical just real quick. The forbidden fruit. Once the forbidden fruit was eaten, Adam and Eve's eyes were open. So same thing with storytelling. Your eyes are open to everywhere that narrative is, and it can make you that much more effective in anything that you do. So I cannot. Um, and again, it's the way my life has gone, right? I got connected with storytelling at 9 years old through Mary Carter Smith. If you don't know who Mary Carter Smith, and I'm not talking to you, Quan,
Mhm.
just specifically anybody. If you don't know who Mary Carter Smith is, look her up.
No.
Um, this was a giant in Black storytelling, and I was honored to be one of her last proteges, me and my sister, before she transitioned. And I would say she was a prophet. You know what I mean? Maybe she knew where I was going with this, but I didn't. But having that opportunity to learn from, again, a giant in Black storytelling, to be equipped with these skills and just a perspective on what storytelling is and does, and
Mhm.
certainly finding my own way to use it, it completely changed my life. So one of the other things that I tell people is think about who allowed you to be in this place right now. Right? It's people. It's people who cared. It's people who loved you, and you should embrace that. You should yeah, you should appreciate that. So I think about Mama Mary all the time. Anytime I do a presentation, I invoke her name. It usually makes me cry when I do, because I know how elemental she
Mhm.
is in my life. She's been gone for 15 years. It doesn't matter. She's still here, because
Mhm.
she's a part of my story. She's a part of so
Mhm.
many other people's stories. So she's never gone. Um, and that's what I want people to embrace in their story. Think about who allows you to be who you are, and it is a who. It's not just a what. It's a who, because again, we are social
Mhm.
beings. We are connected to each other, and having that connection doesn't solve all the issues, but it makes addressing the issues that much easier when you can actually say you genuinely care about the people who you're trying to help.
I do have a question. What do you think that mom and your dad were exposures, how they exposed you to different things, was a major component where you are now, or no?
Absolutely.
Yes or no? Where
No,
you are
absolutely.
now, do you think
No doubt. That's the thing. I'm like, and again, my parents didn't necessarily know how I was gonna turn out. Like, you know what I mean? But they certainly created as many opportunities as possible for me to find that out. And being able to do as much as I did, my sister and I, with arts and culture, with traveling, with education, with sports, just being able to do a bunch of stuff gave us options to
Mhm.
see what was possible. Again, it wasn't a guarantee, but it certainly increases the chances. Education, yeah, education is critical, but context is everything. So yeah, we were fortunate to go to prestigious institutions, predominantly white institutions. We were smart enough, we were good enough to be in those spaces. But I can tell you the impact that we had in those schools were not because of anything we learned there. It's because of the cultural context that we brought with us. So again, the Sankofa Dance Theater, National Great Blacks and
Mhm.
Wax Museum, Growing Greek, that's the stuff that Friends School of Baltimore remembers about David Fakunle. That's what the University of Maryland remembers about David Fakunle. That's damn sure part of my language, what Johns Hopkins remembers about me and why they keep me around, right? So it's the cultural context, it's again all
Uh,
those things that make us who we are that have allowed us to be as impactful as we've been, and that's all because of the exposure that my parents created for us, and that's why I'm eternally grateful to them, and I'm glad that I can still say that to their face, right? I don't take that lightly, that I can still
mhm.
hug them, kiss them, tell them I love them, and say thank you. And as much as I say it, I just try to demonstrate it. Talk is cheap sometimes, but I love to show them
Mhm.
how grateful I am for everything they did. So when I was able to give my father a copy of my PhD and say, "This is yours. You are the reason this happened."
Mhm.
I know that made him so proud. That was like the culmination of his fatherhood for me. Like, he's not off the hook officially, but once we reached that level, it's like, all right, I did what I needed to do. Like, I did right by him. Same with my mother.
Mhm.
So my mother has a copy of my PhD, my sister's MD. She has all of my degrees. Um, and you know my mom. She's like, I can never do anything without her. And yeah, there are times
Yeah.
where that's kind of annoying, but I love the fact that my
Mhm.
mother is actively involved in the work that I do. She has her own legacy, and her legacy is tied to her children. She'll say that proudly. Like, the greatest thing she ever did in her life is us, right? Me and my sister, and she can fly that flag to
Mhm.
the day is done. You know what I mean? And she's earned it. My father's a little bit more subdued, but I know he's proud as well.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and I try to do the same thing with my son. I still have a long way to go. Um, I'm Yeah, I have a long way to go, but I want to create as many opportunities for him just to see what's possible. He's not bound to anything for my satisfaction, for my approval, right? I want him
Mhm.
to be happy. That's all I want my son to be, is happy. So however he finds his happiness, good.
Mhm.
But I want to show him all the things that are possible, and for him to decide how he wants to live his life, what kind of impact he wants to make. So that's what I'm proud of, is to be able to give my son, my wife, my family, my parents, to give them as much of the world as possible, just as for nothing more than just gratitude.
Wow. Yes. Because, well, like I said, Dr. Mom, because she took on the doctor too. Because when you guys, will never forget um, when you walked across the stage and when your sister, when you guys did the picture where you both standing with her, was she talked about when she came to volunteer with us at the center. That's she was esteemed. It was like we were living with her in
Mhm.
um, our happiness. But you are both you and your sister are definitely. She preaches that. She says it all the time. Um, you are her joy.
Mhm.
There is never a time that she say something about David and Mary. You
No, I
know,
know.
and
I know.
that's a thing for me, uh, because so many children who don't they get it from grandma, and sometimes they'll get it from mom. But for example, uh, I will I would videotape, but it was a couple times come down to the center and just how the kids would just look like, oh yes, I'm a kid. I don't know what he does, but I'm gonna do something. And I was like, oh, okay, yep, you can. So what else would you like to talk with as far as Wombwork and any other of your projects that you're doing?
So within Wombwork, one of the things that we've been working on for the past year or so is our existential determinants of health initiative. So, we talked about the importance of holistic approaches to addressing public health challenges. And this was our opportunity to take that to another level. So the existential determinants of health initiative is our holistic program working with people with any manifestations of trauma, trying to provide as much healing in these different realms of health as possible. So we're thinking about uh, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health, uh, mental health, and economic health. We started last year.
Mm-hmm.
We kicked off the actual programming earlier this year with the Charm City Care Connection. We got the funding through Johns Hopkins, their innovation fund for community safety. It was interesting because I didn't even want to apply for it. I didn't think we would get even anywhere close to that funding, but we were encouraged by some of our friends and family to do so. So Wombwork did. We partnered with Virtues Matter, and we partnered with Dr. Arjun Chamagam, who is in the School of Medicine, as well as Hopkins Bayview, Chief of Emergency Medicine. And we just thought about how we could bring all these different components of our skills, our wisdom, our insight into addressing, again, manifestations of trauma. It's important to say that we are all on the spectrum of mental health. We are all on the spectrum of trauma. So even if we don't have a diagnosed
Mm-hmm.
disorder, even if we don't have pronounced manifestations of that trauma, we're all dealing with some stuff. So we started working with people who are dealing with substance use disorder, opioid use disorder, alcohol use disorder. Some are in recovery, some were in active use. And it was our way of providing resources, providing
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to develop skills and community. A cohort, for lack of a better word, but really a community, a family of people going through the experience of arts and culture through wound work, looking at social emotional health through Virtues Matter, looking at physical health through Dr. Chamagam, looking at
Mm-hmm.
economic health through Fulton Bank, who's one of our partners, and trying to give as much of that love in a tangible way, not just saying we love you, but showing that we love you as possible for those that we had the opportunity to work with. So we served about 100 unique people uh, throughout the first iteration of EDOH, which is what we call it for short. We had a core group of 15 participants who really kind of stuck with us from the beginning to the end of the first year. It culminated with a performance at the Voices
Mm-hmm.
of History Street Fair at the National Great Blacks and Whites Museum back in July. It was an incredible performance where the
Mm-hmm.
participants told their own stories of dealing with their trauma, dealing with use disorders, and for many, their healing and recovery from those circumstances. So to have that space and stage to share their truth with others, it was powerful. And we knew it was going to be powerful. So we're so glad that they had that moment. And now we're ramping up for year two. So we're looking to work with young adults, particularly 18 to 39. If
Mm-hmm.
you are dealing with trauma, if you're dealing with some manifestation of trauma, this may be for you. Uh, we respect your time by paying for your time. So any session that you go to, you'll get paid. Any opportunities that we look to cultivate, we will do our best to to compensate you for all of that. So we recognize that time is money. Like we don't apologize for that. Yes, time is money. So we respect your time by paying you for your time, and we hope that you'll stick around for the community that is cultivated, the healing that can happen, the elevation of self, the elevation of the collective, and really just the opportunity to showcase all that you are capable of doing. So that's what EDOH is all about. We will be splitting time next year, starting in January, between Chickway Rec Center, between the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum and the Mansion, as well as the Charm City Care Connection. So it's an East Baltimore based initiative, but it's open to anyone in the city who is in need of healing. So again, you can go to wombwork.com, learn more, and yeah, it's again taking our work to the next level. Like again, that intentional intersectionality of arts, culture, and health is what we're doing. And as is no surprise to me, it's getting recognition because it's working.
Wow. Okay. I just learned. I need to go back on Wombwork.com myself. It's phenomenal because that works truly true to my heart. Trauma to the terminus because people don't that a lot of times they overlook it because they have to feed their families. So they put their mental health or anything in the back burner because they have to feed their family. I mean, as a single mother, I totally understand that because there are times when you have to play, what's more important, my children, making sure they have a roof over their head. So for that, thank you. I definitely would like to know more about it. So David, 8 minutes left. What is it that you would like the public to know more about works? What do you want to leave? It's your stage.
Hmm. Um, I think the number one thing I want the people to know is that we exist. So
Mhm.
let's just start there. We exist. Um, I just speaking, personally, I've known for quite a while that I'm a unicorn, right? I'm a person,
Mhm.
particularly as a black man, relatively young still, um, someone who's been able to achieve a hell of a lot in a short amount of time. Uh,
Mhm.
to be able to occupy
Mhm.
spaces that we typically are not in. I tell people when I was getting my
Mhm.
PhD from Hopkins, there were no other young black men there from the whole time that I started in my department, from the time I started to the time I graduated. So I know I'm a rarity. I shouldn't be a rarity. I know it has a lot to do with opportunity and connection and relationships, not just aptitude and ability, but so be it. I want to create more space for people like me to be recognized for all their talents and abilities. I will be the person that again is in the spaces that we typically don't occupy. I'll say what needs to be said. People have evidence of this. I'll do what needs to be done. People have evidence of this. And I know that I am guided by truth. I am guided by the truths that have been shared with me throughout my life from uh, the elders, from my friends, from my family. I've been, I guess, smart enough to listen, right? Um, I don't really call myself a teacher. I'm a grand pupil. Shout out to little brother for that one. I just learn and absorb,
Mhm.
and I think compartmentalize and put things in perspective. And I guess what comes out is here's how I see the world. Here's how I think
Mhm.
we can all be benefited navigating the world. Um, it's not as hard as we think it is. Yes, there are things that are difficult, no doubt, but there's a simplicity that we can use to govern our lives that makes it a little bit easier to deal with our challenges. Now, granted, there are systemic issues, there are structural challenges that force. a lot of people not to be able to embrace and see the best of themselves, to manifest the best of themselves. I will never be naive
Mhm.
to deny that. And that's also part of what I want to do, is to undo these structural inequities, undo these systemic challenges that plague so many people, not just Black people, not just people of color, everybody. We live in a world where we live in a world where so few dictate the trajectory of the many. And I can't help to think about all of the ingenuity and creativity and genius and impact that never has a chance to manifest because of that. I know how blessed I am to do what I've done, to go where I've gone. And many times it feels like such a lucky draw, right? And that's frustrating because yeah, I know I put in work, my family put in work, and in a way it was a lucky draw. Like I was fortunate to be born to the parents that I had, right? That alone made so much of
Mhm.
the difference. Um, but there are ways we can better implement and cultivate opportunity for people who need it. And that's what I really, really want to do. There are so many unicorns that need their opportunity to roam, to do their thing. And I want to create the spaces for those unicorns to roam. I can only do so much. I'll do what I can. It is
Mhm.
my life's work.
Mhm.
Again, that's why I'm so set in my legacy. That's my legacy. That's what people will remember me for. This was a guy who cared. This was a guy who encouraged people to tell their story. This was a guy who told people their story mattered. That they should lead with their narrative. That they should be driven by who they want to be, who they want others to be, the best of themselves, to be guided by love. I know what a foreign concept. Yes, I am driven by love. I am driven by respect. I'm driven by understanding. Like this is who I am. And so many people are those same things. And in most cases, they just need to hear it. That that's who they are. That's what they've always been. That's what the world needs, and that's what you need to do. And again, I'm thankful for the people who tell me that that's what I did for them. That's what makes me happy. That's what gives me satisfaction. That is what makes me content. So that when I do transition, when I do go to the next plane, I can say, you know what, I did what I needed to do, and I'm fine with my legacy as is. So let me go.
Wow. Thank you very much, David. Oh my goodness. I have to review this video over, this whole show again, because there are a lot of different things that you talked about. The wonderful work that you're doing, Charm City Connections, Charm City Air Connections, um, and Kens, um, you're doing a lot of work out in the community. And for that, I thank you. You can always come on the show. You just let me know when you want to come. This has been, it's so much information, so much, like you said, so much love that's been all through the entire show. Um, I want to do a shout out to your Dr. Mama Deborah, um, for just being a woman, a strong Black woman. Um, there were times she, helped me by listening. I understand that love. I totally understand that, and I'm grateful for that. Is there anything else you would like to say before we end the show?
I'll just end. Uh, Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. And again, like I said, you know where to find me. So happy to do it again sometime.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for Community Connections, Resources, and Guard. I hope you have a wonderful, safe Saturday and holiday weekend. On that